In this episode, we break down an AI RFP from a local municipality. While it looked progressive, there was a lot of red flags. And we want to take you through that to ensure you don't make that mistake when going out to tender or RFP for your AI project. Let's accelerate your business. Welcome to the AI Accelerator for Business show, brought to you by 0to60.ai, where you get the latest strategies, tactics, and information about the business benefits of artificial intelligence. My name is Carl Ye. I'm joined by my co-host, Jeff Bradshaw. And today we're going to actually be talking about a RFP that we saw that we considered bidding on in terms of an AI implementation for an organization. It's actually for a mid-sized municipality. And we saw it here in Alberta. When we actually dug into this RFP, we just saw a lot of the kind of old school or how people are perceiving how to deploy AI, which is very off. We start seeing more implementations when we work with our clients.
You know what, Carl? It was crazy when we read through this thing. Initially, we were excited, but I think the message in this one is that leaders who bake in rules, old school rules into this new technology really run the risk of locking themselves out of innovation and not really getting what they need in the long run. And again, this is our opinion, but I think that once we start to go through some of these points that were in this RFP, you can maybe see why we have this take on this particular one.
Yeah, because we were actually consider bidding on it, but then we actually looked at it deeper, and obviously this is it was a beefy RFP, and obviously we wanted AI's take on it too. And yeah, it just confirmed some of our suspicions. And I think the first one, which is the biggest red flag, was the contract length, right? It's 5-year term plus 2 5-year extensions, which could be a total of 15 years, which in AI years is centuries. Which I was like, why would you ever lock yourself in? Hey, if we got it, it'd be kind of good for us, but at the same time, we'd question it too.
But we wouldn't recommend it. I mean, that would be our first thing is going, and we say that to clients all the time, is don't lock into any long-term contracts, including with us. I mean, for us, our longest term contract is maybe 6 months that we recommend clients look at because of the technology changing so rapidly. And you lock into one supplier for 5 years. What if they're not keeping up with the latest and greatest innovations? You're stuck with them.
And not just that too, is like, it's not that you don't trust your vendor. It's more of, hey, I need to review what we were doing, right? And in the contract it says, hey, we can break it at any time and so on. But I'm like, yeah, but there's a hassle to it. Once you sign the contract, the expectations on both sides change. And I'm not saying we're the best, not saying that at all. But when you have a vendor in AI, progress is so fast, with tools, with people, that you're like, hey, can you give your business more flexibility that they can adjust, right? Because if you're gonna spend 5 years plus an additional, whatever else, you'd have to think, hey, this could be a chunk of our AI budget if you have an AI budget, right? But then I'm like, there's so many things in AI that are moving pieces, different tools, different organizations, how to deploy it, things that like, hey, you know what, does this involve training with your team? Does it involve execution? Because if AI has to run through this one organization, which I have a big fear of, then everybody who wants to try different things, you can kind of see the hierarchy. Oh, we're working with this company. Now you're going to have to go through not just our organization, but have to run it through them. Hey, does this work within the system we built? No. But then AI is moving so fast, and we'll get to that. The system you built may not apply within 3 months, let alone 5 years or another 5 years.
Well, and anybody who's I seem to do this in every podcast, but anybody who's in my age bracket, in the year 2000, Yahoo was the go-to search engine company. Like, they were the biggest, they were the best. So imagine in the year 2000, you signed on for basically a 15-year contract with Yahoo, And think about, I think it was maybe 5 years later, Yahoo, they're still around, but I mean, outside of fantasy football leagues, I don't even really know where Yahoo fits in the whole scheme of things. But that was back then with the internet. We're now talking about the AI timing, and it's moving 100 times faster. So it just seems strange, and it is old school thinking, in our opinion, to look for any like of a 5 year contract, like 3 years maybe. Probably better though, maybe 24 months at least, to be able, or have some reviews in annually,
Yeah.
so that you can at least, keep some flexibility in what a client, what a supplier is providing you with.
And I can understand from a local or mid-sized municipality, it's like, hey, we need a trusted vendor. And usually when you have vendors, you have an annual budget, so you want to have certainty, right? I think this is where it is. I want certainty, but in AI there is no certainty, right? You can't just be like, hey, I'm going to buy this and this is going to serve us for the next 3 years. It's like, no, it's not. You don't know, because most tools within 3 months there's probably something better, faster, or one of the major labs are like, yeah, we like that, so we're going to include that into our, or some genius way of prompting combination with agents kind of solves that whole thing, and now you're stuck, right? So I want to actually move into part 2, which is even as another red flag, is like, hey, it's the prohibition of AI, any type of AI transcriptions, any type of AI note takers. And hey, I'm a big thing that yes, there has to be privacy. You have to ask permission when we're doing we're adding AI note takers to meetings. But the red flag was the thinking behind it. You're already prohibiting AI tools in the RFP way before anything has to happen, which showcases already a defensive mindset. Like AI is a risk. So we're already going to mitigate this before we even talk to any vendors.
That makes no sense. Again, to me, the process should be, when you're looking for an AI vendor, that somebody's going to be able to come in. You're open to all recommendations, but your list risk tolerance is very low. And here's the standards, but at least give the flexibility to explore some of these tools. Um, to me, that would be a better approach, as opposed to just saying we're not going to allow these certain tools right off the top. It just, yeah, it's a bit backwards thinking.
How many clients have we had that's like, hey, they've requested some sort of AI meeting tool because of the someone's actually taking notes, and then from those notes they have to get it approved, and then they have to send it out. People don't know, hey, who said what in the meeting, what did we talk about? And it's funny because I see all these people writing, and you've even said yourself, I write notes in my notebook. And I remember that when I was working for a municipality, everyone would come in a meeting, write in their notebooks. But I was like, who actually has referred back to those notes? Like, very, very small number of people. What's better is I get a list of notes sent to me by email, so I can just, hey, September 29th, I said this. Oh, right. Yeah. I was talking to Jeff and we had to do this together. Much faster than me reefing through my like really crappy handwriting, probably didn't date it, and like, oh, I don't know what happened.
And again, I think any kind of prohibiting right off the top is could be a big mistake.
Then the third red flag was purely building on premise, right? It's like, hey, we have to do on premise build for this particular project or program, which I was like, okay, that's similar to the red flag of prohibiting an AI tool. It's like you've already predefined AI, what you're going to be doing with AI. Well, you have to have some obviously guidelines and rules, but you haven't even talked about this with the vendor. And two, again, with how fast AI is moving, do you really want to lock yourself in? I think the biggest danger that I want to talk about was, I can't remember if it was JP Morgan or one of the big financial companies built a finance GPT. I think this was right before the launch of GPT-4. I think they spent $2-3 million on it. But then when GPT-4 came out, from all benchmarks, all the trained knowledge, it wiped the floor with it, right? People are like, why? So why would you spend 2-3 million? And if you're going to build on premise, this is going to be an expensive build. If it's not a simple automation, if you're hiring somebody for 5 years, you don't want any type of AI note taking at all. this has to be some sort of, you can piece it together, some pretty significant project. So you've already locked the vendor into to this build, which I was like, how, if you did this, then the question I have is, that would mean you would believe you are the AI expert, which then I'm like, okay, then you build it, right? It's sort of like, why would you lock all these parameters in when you haven't even like gone to the market and seen what the potential solutions are? And again, in 3 6 months, AI is changing so fast. What you built could be wiped out by one company or something that does it 10 times better. Yet you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building that specific piece that could be outdated in a month or two.
We know where this is coming from, right? This is coming from fear, lack of education, knowing they need to do something. Like, let's give them credit. They're asking for an AI provider. So that's a huge step in the right direction. I think that maybe the critique that we're having though is that it looks like from this RFP that it's really fear mongering approach coming probably from the IT side of things. And we understand why, because there is some, when you talk about security and privacy and big data and the concerns that are out there, we totally get that. Like that is critical, especially for a municipality. Um, but again, this RFP just, on-prem requirement, no transcribing, those are all things that I don't know. I think it just could have been a bit more flexible and they probably would be way better off in the long run.
Yeah, which kind of leads to number 4, which is the no liability caps, right? So it's like unlimited liability for the vendor. It's like, wait a second. So the vendor is going to take all the risk. The municipality isn't. And I get it, right? Too super risk averse, but I'm like, I'm kind of curious for a unpredictable technology that you would put all the risk on the vendor, who I've seen so many times, you've built something or do something for an organization, doesn't have to be a municipality, that, some sort of line of communications crossed or something, and something's built with the approval of the organization and something goes wrong. It can't be just that the vendor is liable. It's like,
Right.
okay, that doesn't make any sense, because who's the one implementing it? Who's the ones approving it, right? And yeah, I'm this is where I'm like, what vendor like would take all that on, except for those who are like, think of AI exactly like more of a traditional IT enterprise deployment tool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that the most frustrating thing with this is, again, I love the fact that they're doing it, great initiative, but I think there's going to be a lot of taxpayer dollars wasted on an initiative that won't provide them with the outcome that they're looking for. And so I think it's just frustrating. But I think that, I don't know, in my take, and maybe we can talk about this at the end, but I mean, what would be a better approach to be able to deal with a contract like this? I think two things. A could be holding off and maybe waiting another 6 or 8 months or maybe a year until somebody else has gone down the path. So that you might be a little bit more lenient on what it is you're looking for from a provider, or change your perspective and maybe do smaller pilot type projects in a safe environment before trying to look at rolling out an entire plan for a municipality.
The combinations of all this, 5 years, banning transcriptions, right? There's on-premise requirements is very, I believe the vendors that you're going to go with it may have kind of a similar closed mindset, or won't give them the flexibility that, I've seen so many vendors too. They're like, hey, we're stuck. We want to do this, but our contract says we can't, because we've essentially building your own prison. That's the first thing I thought when I saw this. Like, would we be building our own prison? And would we be building a prison around this municipality in terms of AI? And I'm like, it sounds like it. And whether the people who created this RFP intended it or not, that's what it's looking at doing. And really, the last piece I want to talk about here um, is really price heavy, right? So you have all these requirements, but then a big piece of this is price. So it's like, wait a second, like, this is where it's like, hey, this is a control cost first, or like, organization. It's like, hey, we want you to build it on premise. You can't have transcriptions. We're going to sign you for 5 years, but we want to make you cheap. And it's the liability is all on you. Yet, and so we've handcuffed you, the vendor, but so the vendor won't do anything progressive in terms of AI because their fear of, hey, oh, if I go this route, there's a high liability, so I got to keep my price down. What kind of innovation, like literally limiting your entire AI right from the get-go?
You know what? The funny thing is with these, though, is, and I've seen it over the years, where they're very price conscious. But in all honesty, they'll probably sign a contract for $200,000 to $300,000 a year with the selected vendor, and they probably won't have much success with it. There'll be lots of check marks, check boxes marked off. But I think from an actual return on investment, I think it's going to be very low for them. But there's lots of companies out there that, like, in all honesty, if somebody gave us a contract like that, we could do enough to, even with these restrictions in place, to give them something they may think is value. But I don't think it's right. I think ethically, for me, somebody could probably give a smaller group half that budget, a little bit more flexibility, and I think you could get 10 times the return on investment than
You might as well just buy Microsoft Copilot.
what. Yeah,
And
and check the box, really.
like, if that's the case, if this is all this, because you might as well. And even then, you can't use Teams because you have your contract transcription ready in it. And what I just feel is that you go down this path, in about a year or two, you realize you made a mistake. Now you've got to untangle it by essentially breaking the contract with the vendor, right? Say, hey, we can't do this. And you went through that hassle. And it's like, is it really time? Is it one of those things you want to learn from? It's like, yeah, it's a learning experience, but like, what you could have done is spend significantly less and really lean into the flexibility and the adaptability in AI, and got a lot more out of it, right? Instead of trying to come up with this massive project, essentially building your own prison in, which I feel like a lot of organizations, and credit to like many of the ones who recognize, hey, we can't do it this way. There's pieces of it that they still want to, but you can't do it this way because it's gonna kill any type of potential you get out of AI.
Well, you know what? And I think the one shining light on this, and again, I give them huge credit for taking the initiative and looking at AI, because anytime somebody is, I think it's great, because there's lots that still have their head in the sand and aren't even looking at it. So credit to them for doing it. But I can just say that it's unfortunate. And I think the whole message of this podcast is that if you are going to look for a vendor, don't put them in a corner. You'd be better off to keep your money in the bank and don't waste it. If you're not willing to give a supplier some flexibility and be willing to do some tests and fail fast, but also realize the successes out of it, it's probably not worth it, because you got to be willing to play the game and really look at the technology and how quickly it's moving to be able to benefit from it.
And the last thing too that really, got me was more when you saw this kind of this RFP. I'm concerned that someone already had, like, this had to have been approved by, whatever groups of departments or people represented from those departments. Eh, it's going to be interesting where like, the contract's probably going to be significant, right? With a 5-year locked in term. But like, just like how we see organizations, hey, we're going to spend 25, $50,000 a month on whatever tool this is. You're like, yeah, but what you built or what they got, like, you could probably do a custom GPT or a combo of tools for significantly less. We always talk about shadow AI, where people are just using whatever tool. Imagine you build something and it's like, it's not as good. You know what? I'm just going to go back to whatever. Or I found this other tool. It's 10 times better. And I've seen it so many times, right? You're like, yeah, that's okay, but it kind of sucks. So I'm just going to go do this. And it's just a waste. And you're not leaning into flexibility. You're back to the rigidness. And the reason why I bring that up is because I've felt that so many times in any organization I worked with. That's like, why would you spend all that money for this when you could do it faster and cheaper and get even better results. And I always get some sort of weird answer about annual budget, everybody having to work off the same things. Like, nah, this is AI. This is completely different now.
Well, it is because this contract, like you're right. I say 200 to 300,000. I'm probably talking 200 to 300,000 a year. So this is probably going to run up into $1 million+ in a contract potentially. And unfortunately, yeah, we I know you and I, the way we operate our company is we just like to make sure that everybody's getting good value and it's in their best interest. It's not just about getting a contract
Yeah,
because you can baffle a lot of people with bullshit these days.
100%, especially in AI, 100%. So the question I have for your company is, are you planning to, come out with an RFP for an AI vendor? And what are some restrictions, if any, have you put into it? And have you thought about maybe leaning into the rapid progressive AI and how fast it is, and maybe not treating it like another IT deployment? Learn more about implementing AI for your business by watching these videos here. Enjoy today's episode? Want to learn how AI can impact your business? Then please subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.